here is Marlie Alberts, and I just want to say thank you for being a guest on my talk show.
Thank you for having me.
Like I was saying to you before we got started, for our listeners, what Uncensored is, Uncensored is my way to show people that even with a learning disability, I can still overcome controversy and reach my goals in life. At the same time, turning myself into a perfect example for people out there deaf, blind, or in a wheelchair. That you should never label yourself or have people label you, and you should prove to them you can still amount to something. And that's basically the whole statement I'm making. Is you should never label yourself. Now it's going to be a half-hour talk show or more, but you have as much time as you like, and there's no time limit. And you can say anything you want, talk about anything you want, just a normal conversation. All right, well, starting off, what can you tell me about yourself?
Well, I'm 42 years old, and at a very, very young age, I always knew that I wanted to do something in writing, but I didn't have very much confidence, and I stuttered a lot before the age of 10, I had to learn how to break that stuttering pattern. My uncle, who was like a father figure, he really took a lot of interest in my school, and he helped me, really practice reading and taking breaths and taking it slower so that I could, speak at a better pace. It helped me to bring up my grades. He would treat us with movie tickets or sweet treats to get us all excited and to do good work in our math and reading and spelling, which I've actually excelled in spelling over the years because I would constantly recheck my words that I was, trying to write or spell and look it up in the dictionary. So as a writer, I learned to, be creative and write down my feelings and how things were affecting me. And, that's just where in life is. Sorry, I got some jokers around playing with me. But anyways, in life, it helped me develop my writing for my script that I wrote for the only Black family on the Titanic. I was doing research about my family tree, because one day my father gave me a call at the age of 30 that his wife was at a salon reviewing a magazine, and the man in the photo looked just like my father. So as she was reading, it said, "What happened to the only Black family on the Titanic?" And it was the Ebony magazine. And so with that excitement, my dad gave me a call the same day and told me what his wife discovered. And it was a passion that me and my father had a connection with, because 3 years before, I was visiting my father on my birthday. We went to go see the Titanic, James Cameron movie. And halfway through the movie, as the ship is breaking apart, me and my father are sitting there with chills going up and down our spine and arms. And we felt a connection. I don't know if we understood what it was, but we looked at each other at the same time, and we were just like, wow, luckily none of our family was on the boat. But 3 years, lo and behold, the story comes alive again, and I started researching immediately. I started doing as much research online as I could, but back then there was very little internet out there. It was 15 years ago, so the internet was new. It was just expanding. So I had to go to the library to find. I didn't have the article, so I had to look for it at the media section at the library. And once I found it at the local library in Huntington Beach, I immediately started writing down the names and the area and information that I could research online. And once I started putting keywords, then I was able to make connection. Ancestry.com was just building their website. So they had whoever put information out there, they had the information already in the database. So I was able to connect with a cousin that was doing the research for years, and she was the one that was able to introduce me to the only black man on the Titanic, his son and his son's wife. So I connect with her, and she was doing the research for 30 years, and basically everything that I basically she stopped at where I think it was the seventh great grandfather on the line, but she did 30 branches of La Roche, which on each branch had thousands and thousands of names. So to find that she had stopped right on my branch, you know, it was incredible. And she was just like, I was the missing link, you know, and I was able to connect with the family. And had I not had the desire to find out my history and find out who I was, you know, where my roots were, I wouldn't have been able to find all these pieces. So it takes a desire, just as much as, you know, passion. And with everything, you know, you'll be able to be successful. I mean, ever since I put out the website about the Oni La Roche family on the Titanic, I've been getting people drawing into my news feeds, drawing in from newspaper articles, and that's really where the story comes alive, you know, because nobody heard about the only black family of the Titanic until we started researching it. Well, it was, what's her name? Judith Geller. She was the wife of the Titanic Historical Society, where they were collecting all the artifacts, and she was the one who discovered that there was only black family of the Titanic that was of what the story was covered up. So had it not been for her, we would have never known about the family. Not even my family knew about the family.
No, that's very interesting. I didn't know about any of that.
Yeah.
But you said it was covered up, and a lot of things about the Titanic were covered up, and they were now uncovered, and there's a lot of conspiracies about what happened and what didn't happen. So it doesn't surprise me at all that it was covered up.
Yeah. Actually, I think it was, well, as you read about the story, Juliet was a passenger with one of the other passengers. This lady, I can't remember her name at the moment, but because they didn't speak very much English, they spoke French. They kind of bonded on the ship, and so this other couple that was on the ship, you know, they bonded with the La Roche family, and they dined with them and walked around and kind of enjoyed the cruise. Well, when they were rescued, the wives were rescued on the Carpathian. They weren't able to find, you know, the diapers, you know, napkins for the children. So they had to use the dining napkins. And the crew wouldn't allow the women to use these as, you know, disposory, you know, diapers for their children. So they had to smuggle and sit on the napkins after dinner. And these women bond together and were just trying to protect Juliet from some of the, I want to say racism, because they treated the children like as if they were mixed. They didn't know what they were. They thought they were mixed Japanese, you know, orphans, and that's what they kind of told the story on the boat, is that there's no, there wasn't a racial couple on the boat. They had adopted these girls. So when the reporters were coming around and snooping around to get the story, they kind of just covered it up, you know, so that they weren't bothered. It was already a tragedy, and Juliet, she was having a hardship. She lost her husband, her only supporter, and she had, you know, no English. There was nobody there to translate for her. So she was very alone, and she had 2 kids. She was only 22 years old. So it was tough. It was really tough for her. They kind of had to cover the story in order to kind of heal inside.
All right. Now, how does the, not to sound redundant, but how are you connected to the Titanic?
Well, through the research, it was my great-grandfather 7 times back. He was the uncle to the man who died on the Titanic. So the man who died on the Titanic at the time, his uncle was the 21st president of Haiti. And in Haiti, they were very wealthy because the 22nd president was the great-grandson of the first emperor of Haiti. And back in that time, it was during I believe it was 1801 when Haiti became independent from France against the French army. Napoleon sent out 18,000 soldiers to reinstate slavery on Haiti because they had lifted the ban of slavery. But Napoleon wanted to give the island to his sister for her wedding gift. So it was lucrative to hold on to the colony in Haiti. They had the slave trade, they had the imports of all the goods, rice, coffee, plantains, you name it. They had all kinds of produce that they were shipping out of, and Haiti was very lucrative. It was considered the island gem. So the rebels fought for the island. They decided, well, we don't want to become slaves again. It was bad back then. We don't want that to happen again. So 1,300 slaves fought the army, and they won independence. And that was my ancestor who was the general, because Toussaint Louverture, he was taken to France and put in the dungeon. So he was the general at first, but the second in command took over, which was my ancestor.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. There's a movie about it, if you want to look it up, called Toussaint Louverture. Danny Green is trying to make another movie about that, and that is talking about how they became independent slaves. It's a very, very interesting story, and that's why I wrote the script, because I don't just see it about the only black family, the Titanic. It's a history that has not really been told. All people really know about Haiti is that after dictatorship, they have been held down. The people have been held down. And it's really just power. And
all right. No, it's all very interesting.
Thank you.
Now, going on to another subject, we can always come back to this in a little bit. But how did you become an actress? So what got you very interested?
I've been looking for work for 5 years. And since my divorce, it's been pretty tough. My brother was the one who told me to do some background acting because it was just extra money. And ever since I started in it, it just seemed like it was something I always wanted to try, but I never really had the courage to do it. But at the time, it was just keeping the lights on and putting food on the table. And so once I realized after a couple months that I had a story to tell, I started writing my own story about the only black family in the Titanic, and I registered it with the Writers Guild of America. And now ever since then, I've been in articles in the Cleveland Banner, in the Chicago Tribune, in the OC Weekly, and I've been on a couple radio talk show interviews for this story. And I'm just trying to build the story so I can, leave a legacy for my daughter and for my family, because basically there's a lot of family that does not know about this story. Just one second. Hold on, I'm taking it to the other room real quick. Okay. So there's a lot of people that does not know about this story, and for me, it's legacy, it's history, and it's a sad thing that we have to find out years and years and years later. But my father, he just underwent a surgery, and bless his soul, for his larynx. And I'm his voice now. He doesn't have a voice to tell this story. And so I'm his voice. And for me, it always felt like as if there was a spirit or something trying to tell their story within me, within my father. And now I'm the one that's telling his story, since he never took the time to write it. He always would start to talk on the phone. I was like, okay, let me just get out of that room, because I didn't want to be like whispering and he like talking like in a normal way.
So where did we leave off? Oh, you were telling me about the spirit that was coming through from you and your father telling the story.
Right. Yeah, he always wanted me. Well, he always was telling me all these great, amazing adventure of his life, and it's just everything that's happened in my life. I can't even describe how it's just the spirit. It never, like, blood is so thick. You understand? Like, it's never gonna die. It goes from one generation into the next, and I want to be able to leave this history, what my father has gone through and accomplished, to what I'm going through and what I'm accomplishing, because there's a lot of turmoil and struggle in life, and people with disabilities, people with hardship, they are the ones that you need to reach out to, because they're the ones that are feeling alone, and they are probably going through the same thing we're going through, and just wondering how are they going to get through it the next day. So these stories are really important to tell our new generation, so that it gives them inspirations and how they can accomplish success in their life. Because if I didn't research my history, I wouldn't see how much success my family has accomplished. They accomplished independence for millions. You understand? There's a lot of bad in that too. There was a lot of sacrifices and violence and bloodshed that had to happen. And those lost lives are just as important as those that have struggled to get here. So, history, we have to keep on going back to see how the apes, or how the cavemen were able to build society and what they used. Because our ancestors are those who are as smart, and their intelligence has gone through the bloodline, through generation, and we are who they are.
Well, you did hint towards one of the subjects I was going to ask you.
I'm sorry?
Well, you did hint towards one of the subjects I was going to get to, when you mentioned, caveman and apes, but we can get to that in a little bit. I don't want to jump around. But going back to before we got into the whole story, but usually I don't jump around, but it doesn't really matter. But what can you tell me about your high school and college years? Were you a party animal, study nerd?
Oh my God, I was the ditching queen. I think more in high school I became the ditching queen, but through elementary and grade school, in my freshman year, I was really into singing and choir. Geography was very important. I aced geography. I don't know how that happened, but I aced geography, singing, and writing. Those are the three subjects. Since I requested my transcript, I'm trying to go back to school right now. And I was looking at those three qualities, and throughout my life, those three qualities has always stand true for me. And so for me to go back to writing as my natural, passion, it just goes to say, you find what you love, and work on it, and work on it, and work on it. If you love horses and you want to learn how to ride horses, you go and hang out with horses, and you groom those horses, and you train those horses, and you learn how those horses move and how they think. You don't just, someday I'm going to just do this and that, When those that you see are successful, it's because they've practiced, and it's their love. They know that better than the back of their hand. They would do that before they eat. They would do that before they even breathe. So for me, it's like when I get upset and I'm like, what am I doing with my life? What am I not happy right now? It's because I'm not doing what I'm passionate about. And so every time when it comes back to it, I like for this interview, for me, it was just like, I got to get back. I haven't been doing the things that has been building my story. So now, for me to do this interview is just pulling me back to what I passionately like. So, you just have to do what you're passionate in. For me, it was writing. For me to express my feelings, whether it was writing sad stories or sad poetry, that was what made me feel good. And so I was able to express myself, and people were like, God, it's so vivid. You're painting a picture with your words. And when they say that, it makes me feel good because I get goosebumps. I just made them see through my eyes within my mind.
All right. Well, did he ever get the chance to do like a dog pile or a human pyramid, or are you not into that stuff?
In high school, I was into swimming. I kind of backed out of that as I got older, but for me, I kind of I got lost. And really, I remember being 14, wondering what my life was going to be like, what I was going to accomplish. And I was asking myself, what was my family background? Who do I look like? Where do I come from? Those questions. 15 years later, 16 years later, those questions were answered with the magazine article. You know what I mean? Sometimes life takes us around in a circle and you just don't know which way you're going. But it just came full circle for me as I asked those questions many years before. And I didn't have family members I could talk to because my history, my family, our culture, they don't talk about the past because it's so taboo. There's so much pain, struggle. And so for my grandfather to be a pioneer to get us out of Haiti when it was getting really bad, well, he got my mother and his children out of Haiti right when Papa Doc. Have you ever heard of Papa Doc?
Heard of it, but I have no idea what it is.
He was a really, really bad, brutal dictator. And his son, who took over after him, Baby Doc, he was just as bad. So when my grandfather took my mom and her siblings out of Haiti, just in the nick of time, it was this traveler who was just a tourist. And my grandfather was a taxi cab driver in Haiti and took this man all over town. He saw the good in my grandfather. My grandfather said, come to my house, I'll feed you, I'll show you the good places to go in Haiti where you will be safe. And so this man later on asked my grandfather to come work for him in America. So they send, their hard-earned money for their children one at a time. And thank God that happened because who knows? But we are very fortunate about that. And, life is as it is. To get back to the subject, I was a ditcher. I kind of went through the wrong, it's my dyslexia, I think, really, honestly. I look back at it, and that was really the thing that kept me, from socializing. I felt I was the stupidest kid in class. I was the one that always wanted to sit in the back. I didn't want to answer or raise my hand. I really was phlegmatic. I don't want any attention at all. And because of my dyslexic and learning disability, I did not do good in math. I remember my teacher, I never turned in one single assignment. He's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I hate math to this day, and I just won't do it. But I'm trying to get back to school and get my high school diploma because I'm learning now, you can't get into a community college without GED or high school diploma. And that is the most important thing in my life right now, is to go back to school, because with my script, I can take the things that I'm doing in the entertainment industry, and those will earn my points and credits for school. Whatever I do as work in the entertainment industry, that's credit for my writing, for production, for learning film production, for video production. Those are the things I want to do. So when I get my self together. I'm working on it. I'm trying to get back to school this summer. I'm trying to get my GED.
Well, it is uncensored. You can say whatever you want.
Oh, no, I know it's not censored. It's just important to me, you know. So, I mean, I'm 42 years old. I have a 12-year-old who will probably be out of high school in 4 years. For me, that's very important to get my GED and then have myself set up for a career in the film industry.
We just mentioned you have a daughter that's got to be out of school in 4 years, so she'll be out when she's 16?
Well, she's a very smart girl. I'm hoping she wants to be a veterinarian and a marine biologist. So those are, what was it? It was a forensic anthropologist. So those are very, very high, scoring careers. She has to get good grades. And she's a good girl. She's very good.
All right. Well, you mentioned earlier that you were talking about history, and he said it's something about, I don't know how this came up, but the subject I was going to ask you now, I'm always coming up with new subjects instead of asking the same ones. And I'm going to ask you, how do you feel about evolution?
Evolution?
Yeah.
Wow. They say we come from cavemen or apes, and I really don't know, to be honest. I hope that we have evolved from species that were once so primitive, and that now we are able to create whatever environment we want. And as I'm getting older, I see these generations passing by, and when my daughter was born, it was just very eye-opening because the rate that they're learning is exponential. You understand? So we have to move with each new generation at that light speed. We have to keep learning at all times. I mean, there's no really, we can't afford to be down, because with 10, 15 years ago, there was no iPhone. You know what I mean? We were using pagers, and we weren't using cell phones. And I mean, to some degree, we're far behind, because 15 years ago, I thought we were going to have these spaceships. And, you know what I mean? Just be in that 21st century. And yes, medicine has gone so far, and I'm so very grateful to be in this day and age. I don't think I could have been born in the 1600s. I wouldn't have survived for very long. I wouldn't be surviving at 42 years old, for sure. For sure. I mean, look at me. See little skinny me? I'm just tiny. I'm really tiny. The way people starved back then, I wouldn't be starving.
Well, you also brought up a good point about technology. It's amazing how far, for example, what we're doing right now is amazing how far technology came.
Have you seen the Dawn of the Apes, the Dawn of the Planet of the Apes?
I saw it.
Remember the first Planet of the Apes? The very first one? That was primitive. Yeah. I kind of look at it this way. I mean, we're just so fortunate, and at every turn, we have to be grateful for things we do have, because, we're talking about my boyfriend's mom. She was born, in 1901 or something, and it's just ridiculous, how it's just the culture, the way that people were, it was just so different. We have to be able to kind of turn back time and be respectful to those who survived that era, because they're strong, tough as nails. You just have to be as tough as nails too, with getting an education and learning how to, work in any field. I mean, for me, I'm a Jane of all trades, Right now, you see behind me, this is a shop, a man's shop, and sometimes I'm out here working, drilling holes in pipes, or making a little place for guards to cover. Right now we're doing a job for Herbalife, so it covers the powder that goes inside the jars. So you just have to be able to be flexible and be able to learn at any rate something new. I mean, I'm always learning something new.
No, that's true. You're never too old to learn something new. And you mentioned the generation gaps. You know, you compared to about 30 years ago in the 80s. You know, I do say I love the 80s, but we didn't have this in the 80s. So in a way, I do enjoy living back in the past in the 1980s and 81 and early 90s. But technology-wise back then, it was fucking terrible. You know?
Absolutely.
They didn't have anything back then.
We had the rotary phone.
Actually, I miss those.
My daughter was looking at this payphone outside of this restaurant, and it had the phone all broken and everything. I'm like, it's broken, honey. They don't use those anymore. Do you ever see those anywhere anymore, like payphones? Like, seriously, that's kind of whack. They should have, like, new phones on there where it's like, you just push the button and it's like, they see your face and everything, right?
Yeah, that would be nice.
You just use your car, swipe it. It's going to get there. I mean, eventually it will.
Well, it's good if we're talking about the classics. I prefer the classics, you know, the rotary phones. In word of advice, in what I was told, you should have at least one hardline phone in case of an emergency. Because cell phones, all you need is a solar flare or a satellite.
Knocked out. There could be an EMP, you know, and everything will be wiped out. You wouldn't be able to use anything. So we really do need to have those, you know, what was it?
Hardline phone.
Well, there's a radio phone. We just crank it.
Or go back, if we didn't have computers, go back to Morse code.
There you go. We have to have that.
In some respects, the old ways are better than the old ways of today. You know, look at it like this, you know, for technology-wise, for what we're doing, it's great. And for medical health, came a long way. Help people last a lot longer. But just for stupid reasons, like, I don't know, video games are fun, but if you get rid of the first-person shooters, or for people who misuse technology, you know,
it just dumbs us down. I mean, to be honest, it's like we used to be able to remember, and that's why we used our brains back then. There was a lot of technology we still had, but we were still using our brains to put in numbers. You know what I mean? Now with everything being programmed, you don't use your brain. So if we're only using 10% of our brain back 20 years, now how much percent of the brains have we been using? You know what I mean? 1, 3? That's not good enough. I don't think so, because, I mean, society is just programming us like remote controls and everything else to have everything pre-programmed where you're not using the right side of your brain anymore. You're just kind of like, I'm going to sit on a couch and just teach. Oh my goodness, what do you think people are out there shooting people to death, you know? Because they're wasting their life and they're not utilizing their brain. So really, if for you out there, please, don't go postal. Pick up a puck. Oh, there's some new phone numbers.
Well, wrapping up the talk show, do you have any subjects you would like to talk about, or you have any funny stories you like to share?
Oh my goodness. I think I already shared it with you guys. I mean, the moment when me and my dad were sitting watching the Titanic, you know, break in half in the film, it literally was an epic moment because the hairs were going off and we turned to each other and we said, oh my God, thank God that ain't, I think we said, thank God that isn't any of our family on that boat. We ain't that stupid. Oh my goodness, knock on wood, both of us. We knocked on that armrest like, where's the wood? You know, and it kind of backfired. But, you know, I always wanted to be, I always wished for there was some significant thing in my life for me to to have my mission. I wanted my mission. We all look for a mission in life to do something significant. And for me, this was my significant. And for the rest of my life, it will be. Because it's just, I mean, the man looks just like my dad. My dad could have been his twin brother 100 years later, mind you. 100 years later in the bloodline. Well, not really 100. It's, I want to say like 60, 40 something, no, 40 something, 50 years later. Because my dad is like in his 70s. But the story is significant because the woman, Juliet, she went through a lot of hardship, and she raised her children the best that she could. And I'm, at this point, going through some hardships, trying to raise my own daughter. And the most important thing this story has to offer me is education is important, to know who you are. Number one.